Chapter 16 Through the Trapdoor. In years to come, Harry would never quite remember how he managed to get through his exams when he half expected Voldemort to come bursting through the door at any moment. Yet the days crept by, and there could be no doubt that Fluffy was still alive. And well, behind the locked door, it was sweltering hot, especially in the large classroom where they did their written papers. They had been given special new quills for the exams, which had been bewitched with an anti-cheating spells. They had practical exams as well. Professor Flitwick called them one by one into his class to see if they could make a pineapple tap dance across a desk. Professor McGonagall watched them turn a mouse into a snuffbox. Points were given for how pretty the snuffbox was, but taken away if it had whiskers. Snape made them all nervous, breathing down their necks while they tried to remember how to make a forgetful potion. Harry did the best he could, trying to ignore the stabbing pains in his forehead, which had been bothering him ever since his trip into the forest. Neville thought Harry had a bad case of exam nerves because Harry couldn't sleep, but the truth was that Harry kept being woken by his own nightmare, except that it was now worse than ever because there was a hooded figure dripping blood in it. Because maybe it was because they hadn't seen what Harry had seen in the forest, or because they didn't have scars burning on their foreheads. But Ron and Hermione didn't seem as worried about the stone as Harry. The idea of Voldemort certainly scared, but he didn't keep visiting them in dreams, and they were so busy with their studying they didn't have much time to fret about what Snape or anyone else might be up to. Their very last exam was History of Magic, 1 hour of an answering questioning about batty old wizards who invented self-swittering cauldrons, and they'd be free for a whole wonderful week until their exams results came out. When the ghost, Professor Binns, told them to put down their quills and roll up their parchment, Harry couldn't help cheering with the rest. That was far easier than I thought it would be, said Hermione, as they joined crowds flocking out onto the sunny grounds. I haven't learned about the 1637 Werewolf Code of conduct or the uprising of Alfred the Eager. Hermione always liked to go through their exams, pass papers afterward, but Ron said this made him feel ill, so they wandered down to the lake and flopped under a tree. The Weasley twins and Lee Jordan were tickling the tentacles of a giant squid, which was basking in the warm shallows. No more studying, Ron said, happily. Stretching out on the grass, you could look more cheerful. Harry, we've got a week before we found out how badly we've done. There's no need to worry yet. Harry was rubbing his forehead. I wish I knew what this means, he burst out angrily. My scar, it keeps burning. It's happened before, but never as often as this. Go to Madame Pomfrey, Hermione suggested. I'm not ill, said Harry. Perhaps you should see the nurse. I think it's a warning. It means danger's coming. Ron couldn't get worked up. It was too hot. Harry's relaxed. Hermione's right. The stone was safe as long as Dumbledore's around anyway. We've never had any proof Snape found out how to get past Fluffy. He nearly had his leg ripped off once. He's not going to try it again in a hurry, and Neville will play Quidditch for England before Harry lets down Dumbledore. Harry nodded, but he couldn't shake off a lurking feeling that there was something he'd forgotten to do, something important. He tried to explain this. Hermione said, "That's just the exams. I woke up last night and halfway through my transfiguration notes, I remembered we'd done that one." Harry was quite sure the unsettled feeling didn't have anything to do with work, though. He watched an owl flutter toward the school across the bright blue sky, a note clamped in its mouth. Hagrid was the only one who ever sent him letters. Hagrid would never betray Dumbledore. Hagrid would never tell how to get past Fluffy, never, but Harry suddenly jumped into his feet. "Where are you going?" said Ron sleepy. "I've just thought of something," said Harry. He had turned white. "We got to go and see Hagrid now." Why?" panted Hermione. To keep up. "Don't you think it's a bit odd?" said Harry, scrubbing up the costume's nose. "That's what Hagrid wants more than anything anything than a dragon or anything else as a dragon. And a stranger turns up who just happens to have an egg in his pocket. I mean, how many people wander around with with dragon eggs if it's against the wizard law? Lucky they found Hagrid, don't you think? Why didn't I see it before?" "What are you talking about?" said Ron. But Harry, sprinting across the grounds toward the forest, didn't answer. Hagrid was sitting in an armchair outside his house. The trousers and sleeves were rolled up, and he was shelling peas into a large bowl. "Hello?" he said, smiling. "Finish your exams? Got in time for a drink?" "Yes, please," said Ron. But Harry cut him off. "No, we're in a hurry, Hagrid. I've got to ask you something. You know the night you won the Dragon Norberg. What did the stranger you were playing cards with, what did he look like?" "I don't know," said Hagrid casually. "I never saw his face. He wouldn't take his cloak off. He kept his hood up. He saw the three of them look stunned and raised his eyebrows. It's not that usual. You get a lot of funny folk in the Hog's Head. That's one of the pubs down in the village. Might have been a dragon dealer, might have been. I never saw his face. He kept his hood up." Harry sank down next to the bowl of peas. "The stranger, though, what did you talk to him about, Hagrid? Did you mention Hogwarts at all?" "Might have come up," said Hagrid, frowning as he tried to remember. Yeah, he asked what I did, and I told him I was a gamekeeper. He asked a bit about the sword creatures I look after, so I told him, and I said that what I always really wanted was a dragon, and then I can remember too, because he kept buying me drinks. "Let's see, yeah, then," he said, "had the dragon egg. We could play cards if I wanted, but he had to be sure I could handle it. He didn't wanted to go to any old home. So I told after Fluffy and a dragon would be easy. And did he seem interested in Fluffy?" Harry asked to Hagrid, trying to keep his voice calm. "Well, yeah. Well, of course he was interested in Fluffy. How many three-headed dogs you met, even if you're in about Hogwarts?" So I told him Fluffy's a piece of cake. If you know how to calm him down, just play him a bit of music, and he'll go straight off to sleep. Um, Hagrid suddenly looked horrified. "I shouldn't have told you that," he blurted out. "Forget I said it. Hey, where you going? Wait!" Harry, Ron, and Hermione didn't speak to each other at all until they came to a hall in the entrance, which seemed very cold and gloomy after the grounds. "We've got to go to Dumbledore," said Harry. "Hagrid's told that stranger how to get past Fluffy, and it was either Snape or Voldemort under the cloak. It must have been easy once he got Hagrid drunk. I must just hope Dumbledore believes us. Fernies might might back us up if Bane didn't stop him. Where's Dumbledore's office? They looked around him as if hoping to see him as a sign pointing them in the right direction. They had never been told where Dumbledore lived, nor did they know anyone um, who had been sent to see him. We'll just have to. Harry began, but a voice suddenly rang across the room. What are you three doing inside? It was Professor McGonagall carrying a large pile of books. We have to see Professor Dumbledore immediately, said Hermione rather than bravely, Harry, Ron, and thought. See Professor Dumbledore? Professor McGonagall repeated as though this was a very fishy thing to do. Why? Harry swallowed. Now what? It's sort of a secret, he said, but he wished at once he hadn't because Professor McGonagall's nostril. Professor Dumbledore left 10 minutes ago, she said coldly. I'm afraid Professor Dumbledore is not here. He received an urgent alpha from the Ministry of Magic and flew off immediately from London at once. He's gone, said Harry. Now, but this is important. Professor Dumbledore is a very great wizard, Potter. He has many demands on this time. But this is really important. This something you have to say is more important than the Ministry of Magic, Potter. Look, said Harry, throwing caution to the winds. Professor, this is about the Sorcerer's Stone. Whatever Professor McGonagall had expected, it wasn't that. The books she was carrying trembled out of her arms, but she didn't pick them up. How do you know? She spluttered. Professor, I think I know that someone's going to try and steal the stone. I've got to talk to Professor Dumbledore. She eyed with a mixture of a shock and suspicion. Professor Dumbledore will be back tomorrow, she said, but I don't know how you found out about the stone, but rest assured, I assure you, no one can possibly steal it. It is too well protected. But Professor Potter, I know what I'm talking about, she said shortly. She bent down and gathered up all the fallen books. I suggested you all go back outside and enjoy the sunshine. Now would you go back to your dormitories? Quietly. But they didn't. It's tonight, said Harry. Once he was sure Professor McGonagall was out of earshot. Snape's going through the trapdoor tonight. He found out everything he needs, and now he's got Dumbledore out of the way. He said that note. I bet Ministry of Magic could get a real shock when Dumbledore's turned up. But what can we? Hermione gasped. Harry, Ron, and wheeled around. Snape standing there. Good afternoon, he said smoothly. They stared at him. You shouldn't be inside one day on a day like this, he said with an odd twisted smile. We were just, Harry began without any idea he was going to say. You want to be more careful, said Snape. Hanging around like this, people think you will be you're up to something. And Gryffindor really can't afford to lose any more points, can it? Harry flushed. They turned to go outside, but Snape called them. Be warned, Potter. Any more nighttime wanderings, and I will personally make you sure you're expelled. Good day to you. He strode off into the direction of the staff room. On the stone steps, Harry turned to the others. Right, here's what we got to do. We whispered, one of us has to go to keep an eye on Snape. Wait outside of the staff room and follow him if he leaves. Hermione, you better do that. Why me? It's obvious, said Ron. You can pretend to be waiting for Professor Flitwick. You know he put a high voice. Oh, Professor Flitwick, I'm so worried. I think I got a question. Be wrong. Oh, shut up, said Hermione. She agreed to go out for Snape. And we better stay outside the third floor corridor, Harry told Ron. Come on. That part of the plan didn't work. No sooner than they reached the door separating Fluffy from the rest of the school than Professor McGonagall turned up again. This time she lost her temper. I suppose you think you're harder to get past than a pack of enchantments, she stormed. Enough of this nonsense. If I hear you've come anywhere near here again, I'll take another 50 points from Gryffindor. Yes, Weasley from my own house.